as we go along, but that's all right. So let's get going. Harriet, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself, because you will do a much better job of it than I ever could?
Sure. So yeah, hi everyone. Lovely to meet you. And yeah, just again to anyone who's jumping in, I'm not normally this red. I had a facial earlier, so hence why I'm this color. But yes, lovely to be here and kicking off these mastery sessions. I'm also in the Founder Sanctuary as well, along with you all. So I look forward to getting to know more of you as this journey progresses. And a huge thanks to Helen for curating this much needed space. So yeah, I'm Harriet. I am a mum of 3, and I'm also a holistic life coach, a rapid transformational therapist, and I own a wellness platform called the Connected Collective. We run and curate sort of luxury wellness events and community events here in Dubai and abroad. Do you want me to expand on anything on that, Helen, or is that?
No, that's perfect for now. Harriet is being incredibly humble, because she is a triple accredited wellness practitioner. I've been on Harriet's retreats. They are quite transformational. I've experienced some of her RTT as well. And I've also been to her book clubs, which I've really enjoyed and have taken so much away from. So Harriet, I know that you went on a bit of a journey to get to this point yourself. It's not like this started for you when you were young or when you were even a teenager. Tell us a little bit about the 3 qualifications that you've got and kind of how you got to that point.
So currently today, so I'm a coach, a hypnotherapist, and then I have some other sort of qualifications that I bring into my work, mainly somatics training. So the work that I do essentially is it's a real blend of the mind and the body. So the subconscious stuff is obviously through hypnotherapy, rapid transformational therapy. I don't know if any of you have heard of or come across RTT, as it is known. It's kind of getting quite popular now here in Dubai because the founder Marissa Peer has recently moved to Dubai, so you may have started to hear about it. That's a very powerful modality that works with the subconscious to really get to the root of limiting beliefs, really kind of free yourself from any sticking patterns in your life, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, whatever it is. And that's really where a lot of the real lasting meaningful change happens. But I also like to work with the body as well, so I bring in a lot of somatic nervous system regulation pieces as well. A lot of my work historically, I also worked with mothers, so I'm a motherhood studies practitioner as well, which is essentially I'm kind of looking at the sociology of motherhood. So really understanding the ways in which we, as women and as mothers, are shaped by our cultures of origin, our societies, our media, all of those things, and how that really impacts kind of how we show up in the world. So all of those things together, kind of the beauty of blending those modalities is that I can really support people in a way that's both deeply practical and profoundly transformational. So obviously coaching brings clarity and direction. Coaching in its nature is very future focused, sort of present and future focused. Hypnotherapy allows us to kind of work with the subconscious to shift deeper blocks. And that's obviously more kind of past and past and present focused. And obviously everything together kind of really gives me, that bringing in the kind of sociology piece gives me a lens on kind of systems and stories and pressures that we are really kind of dealing with and navigating behind the scenes. So what I try to do in my work is, and I'll touch a little bit on this when I talk about the values pieces, there's no sort of framework that I have to my work. I don't follow like a 5-step plan. Everyone is very unique. Everyone needs different healing keys. So it's just about kind of meeting someone where they are, whether they're a founder, a CEO, a mother, or all of those things. It's really what I do is help them reconnect with who they truly are underneath everything, underneath all the noise. So that's what I do today. I didn't always do this. I about 7 years ago, when I had my first child, I was living in London, working in corporate. I was one of the first people to set up the Snapchat office in UK, so spearheading the growth across Europe. So yeah, a big kind of corporate job in a tech startup, flying all over the world. And for me, my experience was really thinking that I was going to have my baby and take 6 months off and then just kind of seamlessly ease back into my life in corporate. And what happened in that period was I had my baby and I crashed into motherhood, and the kind of expectation reality gap there for me was huge and quite ungrounding. And we also moved to Dubai in that time frame. We moved really quickly. We had about 6 weeks to kind of pack up our lives and leave. And the combination of sort of those things combined was so ungrounding and unsettling for me that I basically had a breakdown. And what the most sort of confronting piece for me was that I just really had no idea who I was. I had no idea what I wanted for my life. I had no idea what I liked. I had no idea what kind of mum I wanted to be. I had identified my whole life as a people pleaser. So, you know, just shape shifted to whoever I needed to be in any kind of situation. So that was really where everything shifted for me. And that began, that journey. I mean, it's you're always on the journey, it never ends, but it began my journey of kind of where I am today. The first step of that was obviously leaving my corporate job and retraining to become a coach.
I remember when I was on a retreat with you, you describing this as if you were to meet somebody and they were to ask you what type of music you liked, yeah, your immediate response would be, well, what type of music do you like? Because you had no idea. And also you just wanted to be, whatever they said, that was correct for you, right? That was kind of your way of people pleasing, your way of finding your space in the world. I saw a story recently that you posted that talked a little bit about how you came up with a name for the Connected Collective and that kind of moment where everything shifted for you and moved it into a bit more of a, I suppose, business focused space. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was laughing about this the other day because so my wellness platform is called the Connected Collective. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I was talking to a friend or an acquaintance rather a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, oh, by the way, like she's moving into doing some of her own retreats, and she was like, oh, I was on ChatGPT, like, looking for some names, and they suggested the Connected Collective, and I was like, wow, that's so annoying. Like, I came up with that myself. Like, I was really upset that ChatGPT was like spitting out this name that had just come to me as this kind of epiphany. But anyway, this was before ChatGPT was suggesting business names for half of the internet. But yeah, so I just the Connected Collective started with, and it's still running, but it started with a book club, a self-development book club for women. And it was really for me, I just really felt as an expat. And again, this was maybe slightly before the rise of AI as we all kind of integrate it today. But I was just, I really felt like we were all just craving connection. We live in an age of communication, but that doesn't mean we're connected. So it really just started with that, with an understanding that connection is medicine. And I wanted to curate and create spaces predominantly for women. So the spaces that I run are still predominantly for women. I do run some couples retreats. But yeah, I remember I was sitting in a cafe and I was just scribbling on a napkin, and it just clicked. And it was about connecting with like-minded women, creating a space where we could just allow ourselves to be seen, where we could kind of drop all of the things that we are holding and allow someone else to hold space for us, because we hold space for so many other people. So it's grown since then. It's grown into a retreat and a wellness platform, with kind of experiences ranging from luxury retreats to corporate wellness, coaching programs, community events. But at the core, it's still about creating spaces where people can come home to themselves and to each other.
And growing that with 3 kids, living basically in a new city, coming to terms with all of the stuff that you had to come to terms with personally. Do you feel that it's it's aligned with your original vision? Has it gone beyond that? What's that journey been like over the last kind of 6 years or so?
I mean, I would say when I started it, I didn't really have much of a vision as to where I wanted it to go. It was rooted in trying to in my values, and we'll obviously talk a little bit about that today, but that also wasn't something that I knew immediately. When I first did a values exercise, that was really where it started for me, right? Because it was like, okay, what the hell do I actually need from my life? Like what drives me underneath all of these hats that I wear, underneath all of these roles that I play, underneath all of these things that I identify as? What do I need in my life for me to be okay and for me to be fulfilled? And I honestly had no idea what the answer to that was. So it wasn't like I did this exercise and I was like, right, cool, I know my values and I'm going to build this business around it. It was just, I think I know what I need and what I don't have. And let's start moving towards that. So it's sort of been a little bit of like a following the breadcrumbs trail in a way. But yeah, I guess to your question, it's everything I do is always rooted in intention and in my values. And I think being in a space like Dubai, being a founder, it's very easy to get swept up in the opportunities, and once the ball is rolling, it can feel a little bit difficult to stop it sometimes. I'm sure there's conversations that will come up time and time again in this space. So I try, and as you say, like I have 3 young kids, right? I didn't they're 6 and under. I want to build this business. It's rooted in purpose and meaning, but I want to be there for my kids also. So I think it's just sort of finding that center for me, and that for me, that's always coming back to my values.
And I think that's very smart. It's kind of looking at solving the problem rather than being married to any particular solution that you've come up with at any particular time. It's being agile enough to pivot. It's being flexible enough to fit it around how your life is changing and working as well, so that it still carries on working for you. And the gap that you found there in terms of the connection is still the problem that you're solving, with everything that you're doing, whether it's an online community, whether it's a corporate event, whether it's a retreat, whether it's the book club, like it's still solving that core problem. And I think that's what's so powerful about what you've built. In terms of your, as a founder, given we are all founders in this space, what have been your biggest wins and your biggest challenges over the last kind of 6 months or so?
Biggest wins, probably definitely the growth of the retreats, both in scale and in soul. Watching the women who join us experience, like it's just the most beautiful thing, watching women come on these retreats and have these huge, massive shifts and experience real lasting transformation. It's just the most fulfilling thing. There is just such magic that happens when people feel safe enough to be seen and to soften. So I would say that for sure for me is probably the biggest win. Biggest challenge is just it's always going to be the juggle. I think people often assume that you figure it out at some point, but the reality is, I don't believe in balance, right? I believe in counterbalance, and this is why knowing your values is important, because it's a constant recalibration. It's a daily recalibration. What worked last month might not work this one. To be honest with you, last week I'm coming off I was pushing the edges of burnout last week, and I recognized that, and I was like, okay, this week I just need to clear my diary. It's pretty much the only thing I have in my diary this week, because it doesn't always look that extreme. So it's I don't have a magic solution for that. It's just constant coming, where am I? It's like the seesaw, where am I out of balance? So it's a constant dance of boundaries, self-compassion, and remembering why you started, right? Coming back to that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely recognize that. And I think some people ask me, and I'm sure they ask you as well in interviews, particularly as we're mums, how do you do it? What does your day look like? What's your kind of plan? And it's just not like that. It's about sort of working with your energy and being confident enough to know when enough is enough and to say stop, and to move things around that are not working for you. Because being at that point of burnout or past it is not good for anyone. Not good for anyone around you, not good for the business, definitely not good for you. And you just want to get the best out of anything or any situation that you're in. So I think that's a very mature way of looking at it. And it takes a bit of time being a founder, I think, and going through this journey to recognize that. What is your next step with this? Because I see, I follow you really closely. I see changes happening all the time. You've brought out the newsletter now, which is super cool. Comes out every Sunday. So check that out on Harriet's profile, particularly if you're in Dubai. Where is this going for you over the next kind of 6-12 months?
I think, I have visions of where I want it to go, but again, I'm staying rooted in the intention. I see it kind of evolve. I see the Connected Collective evolving into a kind of full wellness and editorial platform, and being a kind of trusted voice in the luxury wellness space. One thing for me that I'm really focusing on is, and I always focus on, is collaboration. I mean, we've got on this call actually one of the amazing female founders who we've partnered with, who have been amazing in really just elevating the experience that we're able to offer. And so that for me is a big focus, is really I love collaborating. I love, as we all well know, if we're, solo founders, it's, it can be a pretty lonely road. So that's my focus this year actually, is really hiring, firstly, bringing people into the business who are rooted in the same vision, and working with external partners who also, who also have the same, vision. And but I think, ultimately everything I do will always come back to that. More than anything, I want anyone who interacts with our work to be reminded that you get to do things differently, that you get to feel seen, that you get to choose. So I also think as well, to be honest, for the next 6 months, I'm actually kind of reminding myself that it's okay to take a bit of a pause. We've been in quite a big phase of growth, I would say, the last 12 months. And this speaks to kind of what I said earlier, where sometimes once you've got that momentum, it can be really hard to actually say, like, it's okay, like I'm going to just get off the treadmill for a second, and trust that you're not going to lose enough speed. But I can feel the edges. I'm pushing to the edges. So I'm actually, just for the next 6 months, dialing it down. I've got a retreat in Ibiza next week, and then I've got one more retreat for the rest of the year, and then it's kind of 2026 focus. So actually the vision for the next 6 months is just more on me, I would say, and regulating myself.
Yeah. And I think it's just giving yourself a little bit of space to work on the business as well as in the business.
100%. 100%.
Because it's so full on when you're, particularly for you, doing events and what have you, when you are required to be so energetically present, that must be a huge responsibility actually. And you need to give yourself the space to have the creativity to keep moving things forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a quick run through who you are, what you do, why you do it. We're going to have some Q&A at the end, but I am now going to share my screen, and Harriet is very kindly going to run us through a values exercise. And for those of you who've never done anything like this before, this was also a new thing to me when I was on Harriet's retreat, which I cannot believe is nearly a year ago, actually.
I know, crazy.
And that was one of your first, I think, one of your first.
That was my first international retreat, actually.
International one. Yeah, exactly, in Oman. And it, you know, I had zero, I didn't know what to expect. And it was, as Harriet said, it was one of those spaces where you can just drop everything and be yourself. And, you know, at the end of the 3 days, you learn something about all of the people that are there that you would never, you'd perhaps not learn about them in the, you know, 10 years or whatever you might have known them otherwise. You get to see people in a very different way. And that's something I took away from me, partly because of this exercise that we went through around values. I now have a deck of values cards, which you can buy from Harriet's website. I'm sure she'll share the link with you. I would highly recommend you do so. I made a video on it when I came back. I think it's on my YouTube channel. And I have my 5 core values on my phone, which, if you need to know, are courage, harmony, integrity, growth, and independence. And I go through that exercise every now and again. Now, we can't go through this exercise on this call because we all need a deck of the cards, which we don't have, but we can go through the fundamentals of why it's important. And I would, as I said, heartily recommend you grab a deck of those cards. So if everybody can see the screen okay, I'm going to hand over to Harriet and she can take you through her presentation.
Are you going to share your screen, Helen, and then I'll just tell you, or do you want me to share mine?
Yeah, can you not see it yet? I thought I was sharing.
No, I can still just see you.
Hang on.
I don't know if anyone else can.
Try that.
I can feel myself getting redder and redder. I think I'm just going to turn AC on quickly. It's microneedling. It's like stream.
You could just turn can you see my screen?
No,
we
can still just see you.
Just you, yeah.
Do you want me to try and share mine, or?
Yeah, try and share yours because.
But it says no. I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed. You need to make me a host, I think.
Yeah, it's saying I'm sharing, but it's not because it says stop sharing. Let me try again.
Or if you go into participants and then click on me and then more, you can make me a host and then I can share.
Yeah, I'm just try doing that.
Or just click on share and then do enable participants to share.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow, I'm learning all the tricks here. All right, I'm going to make you a co-host. I'll make you a host. There you go.
Okay, cool. Right, okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Let's try to got them right in the sun here.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Need to open my. So I've got a new laptop today, so I'm just setting everything up. Okay.
Technology.
Later. Right, let me try this. Okay, cool. I think this should work.
Got it. There we go.
Okay, cool. All right, let me just present this so you can see this properly. Helen, how much time do I have?
You've got about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll do some questions at the end.
Okay, cool. You can all see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so I'll whiz through this bit because I've introduced myself and you know me, and you also know a little bit about my backstory. So yeah, this is kind of what I was just referencing earlier. That was me 7 years ago, just before I had my daughter. And as I said, the real foundational piece for me that helped me through all of this was my values. It was really where I started, just kind of turning inwards. And, you know, at the ripe old age of whatever I was then, 33, realizing that I had never once asked myself what what do I want for my life? What brings me meaning? What brings me fulfillment? What are the things that I need in my life for me to be okay? So values really does form the basis of everything I do. So again, obviously don't want to rehash things that I've just mentioned, but this is the framework that I work with everyone. So I work with a range of different people in one-to-one settings, whether it's CEOs through to founders, through to first-time mums, and this is kind of the framework that I work with. So I won't go through every one, but obviously, as you can see, values is the foundation. It is always where we start, and then from that place we move into alignment. So we start to look at, okay, if these are the things that you consciously say you value, let's look at all the areas of your life and really start to understand and make visible where you are just fundamentally out of balance, and where can we help you kind of bring that back into balance. So we're not going to do the actual values exercise today, as Helen said. Normally what I do is I would, so I've got my deck of cards here, which I'll kind of talk you through, but we would normally go through the cards themselves, and we would get you down to your kind of guiding, like 3 to 5 values. Has anyone actually, you can just either like raise your hand on the thing. I'd love to know, or in the chat, if anyone has actually done any values work before, or if people are completely new to it. But anyway, what we will touch on is kind of why they're so important, and obviously fundamentally why they're so important for founders as well. Okay. So
Harriet,
yes.
oh, sorry, just a quick one. I think there was a few notes as well. We can't see the present screen. We can only see your Canva screen at the moment. So I think
what can you see the you're not seeing the full presentation?
No, I don't. I think that's what everyone's saying. Yeah.
Oh,
so we
okay.
could see the Canva screen, but not the present screen.
Hang on. Okay, so it's not moving. Oh, there we go. That's why, because I wasn't sharing the right screen. Okay, hang on.
Yes, we can see the 3 Ps now.
Now, and has it gone? Now you can see it.
Yeah,
like,
perfect.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Sorry about that. I couldn't see the chat either. So okay, amazing. All right, mainly with ChatGPT. Oh, I love this. I need to hear more about how ChatGPT is doing values work. But so we used to talk a lot about this. I don't know if any of you are kind of ex-corporate or used to talk about this, but we used to talk a lot about the 3 Ps in corporate. So productivity, priority, and purpose. So the most productive businesses, CEOs, whatever they are, founders, are productive because they have a clear sense of their priorities, and they have a clear sense of their priorities because they have a clear sense of their purpose. I hate the word productivity. I think we are overly, our society is obsessed with productivity. But what I mean by productivity is doing more of the things that you care about and less of the things that you don't. So really being productive in the areas that matter to you. Is this moving for you now? You can see my screen moving. Cool. Thank you, Jazz. Okay, so why does knowing your values matter? Number one, fundamentally, living authentically. Your values are the things that you use. They are your internal compass. They guide your decisions. They shape your priorities. They influence your relationships. So when you know your values, it will allow you to align your actions with what truly matters to you. And that ultimately creates a sense of fulfillment and reduces inner conflict. Stay resilient. Clear values will help you weather challenges. They give you a firm foundation, essentially. The world is always going to throw shit at you. So your values are really the foundation that you use to make decisions, even when you're under pressure. And communicate clearly. This forms a big part of my work. So I don't think we'll have time to talk about it today, but a big part of what I do now is actually I do a lot of couples values and team values. Because when you are clear on your values, you can start to not only articulate your needs, your boundaries, and your goals more effectively, but you can also understand what the people around you need or desire to be respected in themselves. And you can start to really see other people in a way that you might not have been able to see them before. You can see them through a lens of curiosity rather than through a lens of judgment. You are able to see not just their actions, but the motivations behind their actions. And then this is the kind of information that you use to make decisions. So again, in a founding space, you know, when it comes to hiring people, co-founders, right, knowing the values of the people that you work with day in, day out is completely non-negotiable to me. You absolutely have to understand what drives you as individuals, to know where you can work more effectively together, where the trigger points might be, and really just to foster better harmony between you. Why does this matter for founders? So, you know, I wanted to just obviously for this session kind of you know, talk specifically about this through the lens of founders, because when you are building something, whether it's a business, whether it's a brand, whether it's a movement, you're not just making decisions, you're setting a tone, right? You're creating a culture. And your values, as I've sort of said, they're your foundation, right? They're what hold you steady when things get noisy, when you feel the burnout coming in, when things feel uncertain, when things feel fast moving, when things feel fragmented, you know, which, let's be honest, right, that probably feels like most of the time, you know, in startup life. Values also help you avoid the trap of chasing growth for growth's sake. Okay, so what this is about ultimately is building with clarity, building with integrity. You know what to say yes to and what to walk away from, even when it's super shiny. You know, I think, yeah, I've written it there, right? They keep your mission grounded in meaning, not just momentum. I think that feels really important to me. You know, going back to sort of what I was saying then about, you know, my values, two of my core values are growth and connection, right? So growth is really important to me. I've been very much in a focus, in a cycle of growth for the last year, I would say, growing my business, you know, doing more qualifications. But I've had a few instances, particularly in the last few months, where it has really taken me away from my kids, and I've been called out on it. You know, my eldest daughter is 6.5, and you know, she's been having some big emotions recently, and you know, we sat down and had a chat, and she was like, "Mommy, I just feel like you're never here at the moment." And you know, obviously that makes me feel guilty, but it's useful guilt, right? That is guilt that I can use to say, okay, what's happening here? Like, connection is one of my biggest values. I need to be connected to my kids. So where do I need to pull back? Where do I need to balance that seesaw? Where have I gone too heavy in one area? You know, that recalibration piece I was talking about. So these are the things that you need to use to understand when it's okay sometimes to pull back a little bit. And ultimately, your values are what make your leadership feel real, okay, to your team, to your clients, to yourself. You know, when you're aligned internally, this isn't just about your business performing, it's about your business feeling purposeful. And I'm sure every single one of you here in the Founder Sanctuary is here because of that. You know, and Helen and I have had multiple discussions about this. And sometimes you are building a business, you know, whatever it is, from a place of knowing your values, but maybe not consciously ever stating them. And maybe Helen can speak to that a little bit, because I know you found this exercise really, really powerful. So sometimes just articulating it again is just a really powerful way of just staying rooted and grounded in those things. So what are core values? I think conceptually people understand what they are, but kind of in terms of, you know, ultimately your core values are your guiding compass in life. Okay, they are the things that are intrinsically valuable to you. What is true about you today, that when you honor these things, you feel the greatest sense of fulfillment. But sometimes I think it's easier to come to understanding what values are when we actually look at what they are not. So values are not aspirational. They are not goals. They are not social idealisms. They are not what you want to be. They are not who you have been told you should be. This is a very factual approach. Okay, these are the things that you need in your life for you to be you. And people really fight against this kind of aspirational context. You know, we all want to be generous. We all want to be, you know, we all want to be financially independent. We all want to be growth minded. That's not to say those aren't values, by the way. But what this is looking at is what really makes me happy. Okay, so if we look at the business goal or the financial independence goal, sometimes we reach those goals and it can feel a little bit like a box ticking exercise. Okay, that's not to say that it's not exciting, or that we didn't enjoy it, or that it didn't matter. But actually, do you feel totally fulfilled when you achieve those things? In the absence of those things, are you unfulfilled? Okay, so it's in the absence of these things that we are completely unfulfilled, right? You can achieve all of these outside mile markers, but if you don't have these things, you're likely going to be unfulfilled. And I think we probably all know these people or know of these people, super successful, have all the money in the world, fucking miserable. Because the chances are they've built, you know, they set themselves a goalpost and they've climbed that mountain, they've got to the top of that mountain, they've done it not really honoring who they are and what they need in life. And they get to the top of that mountain, they look around, they go, well, that feels really empty. Where's the next mountain? So, you know, this is really kind of important to look at and understand when you think about what you want to build and also who you want to build it with. Values in relationships. Sorry, I was just having a quick look at the chat. Yeah, Jazz. Yeah, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to. I'll come back to this in a second. I just wanted to have a peek at what people were saying. So I won't dive too much into this because again, this is not. We don't have a huge amount of time, but knowing your values is the biggest gift that you could give to anyone around you. Okay, super important thing to do with your team, with your partner, with your kids. If you have kids of a certain age, by the way, I would say probably like preteen, teens upwards. It's so important to know what we need to be respected within us, but also what needs to be respected within other people. And again, I've talked about this, but when you understand others' values, you're not just seeing their actions, you're seeing the motivations behind them. And this is then information that you use to either foster empathy, connection, or to set boundaries, or sometimes to end relationships, right? You know, sometimes actually when we are clear on what our values are and it's very evident that actually, you know what, this person just isn't allowing me to be my authentic self in any way, or our values are just complete opposite ends of the scale and there's no kind of bridge here, you know, you use this as information to move forward. I like to talk about it in this way. So values are the bridge between perception and perspective. So we all see the world through our own unique lens, right? We all have perception. That is what we all have. We have a perception of the world. It's how we personally interpret and experience a situation. Perspective, obviously, broader understanding, right? That considers other people's emotions, other people's viewpoints, other people's values. Values act as that bridge. Okay, they act as that bridge between, you know, perspective and perception. And I do a lot of work, as I said, I do a lot of work with couples in this. This is so, doing your values is the most like transformational thing for being able to name challenges that you might not have been able to name before. So I talk about this a lot, but values work is probably what saved mine and my husband's marriage. We come back to it very often. We have very different values, which, by the way, can happen, is very often happens in romantic relationships because we tend to look for the counterpart of us in somebody else, but often that can present its own challenges. So, you know, and again, coming at this from a founder's perspective, you know, if you are working with a co-founder, you know, or with people very closely in a small team, really being able to understand what drives you and where you can work together. So I worked with a team recently, and the manager really valued efficiency, and one of his team really valued quality. And the manager perceived this particular employee as being a really slow worker and found it very frustrating. And what the particular employee was like, I need to take my time because precision is important to me. Precision and quality is important to me. So they really used this kind of understanding of like, okay, I understand that efficiency is important to you because you want results fast. I value precision because I want accuracy. How can we find a way to work together that respects both of these things? Okay, so it really encourages understanding. It creates alignment. So there are a couple of different questions that you can, and I'll share these with you as takeaways afterwards. But when you find yourself in disagreements with people within your team, you can really ask, like, how are my values shaping my perception of this situation? What values might be influencing the other person's perspective, and where can we find alignment or balance between these values? Okay, and even this simple shift will really transform relationships, friction into understanding, misunderstandings into meaningful connection. It's a really beautiful thing when you can actually use trigger points as a way to just bridge closer together. So Helen, am I nearly at time? I've got like two or three more minutes. I'll just take that as a yes. Yeah, I'd just like to caveat, we're obviously not, cool, thanks Helen. So we're not going to go through the process today. I will talk to you a little bit about how you can do that. Obviously, you can buy my cards if you want to, but there are plenty of other ways that you can do it. You can just Google list of values if you want to do it that way. But I do just want to caveat two things. One, it is a process. Okay, if you have never done this exercise before, and I think I was just having a quick look at the chat, I think maybe some of you have done it in some way, shape, or form. But this is not a home run necessarily the first time you do it. Okay, it can be very difficult to unpack, particularly if you are like me when I first did it and I'd never done it and I had no idea who I was. It can also be very difficult to separate your values from aspirational. So what actually is goal driven, depending on your cultures of origin. It can also be difficult to separate what perhaps are more culturally embedded values. Again, not to say that they're not your own values. I worked with a guy once, though, who was ex-military, and all of his values are basically the values that have been drilled into him by the military. And we took like 2 sessions for him to realize, like, actually, no, these are not my values. They're just what have been drilled into me my whole life. So, that's not to say that, our values do often come from our families, but we need to unpack that a little bit and actually understand, like, is this something that feels important to me, or is this just something that I've been led to believe, or I've been kind of taught? It can take, a little bit of time to dig down and sort of find out what really matters. The second thing is, this process is actually really difficult to do in a vacuum. So I would say, if you are really committed to this thought exercise and you haven't ever done it before, I would encourage you to work with someone to do it, whether that is someone, a friend, a partner, just someone who can challenge you a little bit and really reflect back to you. Why is that important to you? Tell me about that. Tell me about a time in your life where you didn't have that value. Tell me about a time in your life where you did have that value. When you're doing this just by yourself, it's quite difficult. So just those 2 things I would just caveat. If you are doing this exercise for the first time, just give yourself permission to put something on the board and then test them out. Okay, I'm going to skip through. So what I will say, because we're obviously not going to do the exercise in and of itself. So these are the cards. If you're in Dubai, I can get these cards to you same day. I created my values cards because I personally really like using cards. I like using something quite tangible. So there's 88 cards in this pack. I'll try and show you on the camera, but they all have a value on the front. So, change, joy, creativity, self-discipline, individuality. On the back, they have a little affirmation and action points. That's really just if you're not quite sure what the value means. And then there's a process essentially of going through the deck, sorting them out, categorizing them, and getting down to your kind of core guiding values. Again, lots of different ways that you can do it. ChatGPT probably can help you as well. But I would just say, just know that it's not always like you're not going to tattoo these on you, basically. I mean, you might, to be honest, but you're probably going to have a lot of tattoos in a few years. So yes, I think, yeah, I'll wrap it up there. Helen, do you want me to add anything else?
No, that is perfect.
Yeah.
And I, you know, as you say, I like having something tangible as well. And as you turn those cards over on the back, just in case you're kind of questioning whether this is or isn't your value, or sometimes, you know, you will come up with 5 that are very similar. You can then kind of nail which one speaks to you the most clearly, and that's kind of your core value. And I will say that, you know, as I mentioned, I did this exercise last June. So when I'd been through both of my business and just sold my second business, but actually when I figured out my values, which didn't take me very long, I recognized how they tracked back to so many of the decisions that I'd been making, so many of the core principles and guiding directions of the business and the decisions that we made within it, for it, around it, even around things like hires and how we worked and who we work with, you know, which partners we chose. So they are super kind of fundamental in so many ways that you perhaps don't realize if you've not done this exercise before. So thank you so much, Harriet. I hope this has been enlightening for people and helpful. I'm sure it has been. We have about 9 minutes left, so I just want to hand over to everyone else who's been very patient and quiet, but thank you for all the questions on the chat, to see if there are any questions from everybody inside this conversation. Feel free to put your cameras and your microphones on, and I will hand it over to you guys. Cool.
I'll break the silence then.
I can see some messages. There we go.
Firstly, Harriet, thank you very much. That was really, really good. I've gone through quite a deep value excavation. I'm sitting in a building called the Old London Stock Exchange Tower, where I used to be a wealth manager and in my banking days. Completely different human being now, but somehow I've ended back in the same building as an office. The evolution of values, as you know, as we get more wise and more wisdom, how do you incorporate that into your business? Because my business is very much purpose driven over profit. I have to make a profit to deliver the purpose and the impact. How do you balance the two, where you're so purpose driven and you're seeking social value and social mobility in my case? How do you balance that with making enough profit to keep it moving?
So it's a great question, and I by the way, I love the values excavation term. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think there's a, you know, I guess, well, I would ask you the question: is there any element of the growth of your business that is rooted in your values? Is there any? Do you mind sharing what your values are, or?
Yeah, so my values are very much community,
yeah,
very much social mobility. And what I mean by that is social inclusion. So I not only want to lift the person I'm working up, I want to lift them up so high that 5 generations down from them, their children will benefit. So it's really art in that belief that we're here to be of contribution and service.
Okay. And are they, so what I would say to that is, you know, are your when you're talking about your values, are you specifically are you separating your personal values from your kind of founder values, or do they feel one and the same?
No, they overlap. They overlap quite a lot. They never used to. They used to be oil and water. They didn't mix very well.
Yeah. Look, I think ultimately, I think you will find, you know, if everything comes back, right? So for example, one of my core values is security. Okay. So for me, that looks like financial security as much as anything else. So getting my business to a place where it's profitable is important. I'm, you know, as much as it's also grounded in, you know, purpose and meaning and community and connection, if it's not making money, then, you know, it's not giving me that security piece. So, you know, that's kind of my question, is like, where can you link that desire back to, you know, when it comes to it making money, because plenty of people run businesses that don't make money, or that are very happy. They're very happy for them to stay small, and stay very kind of purpose driven, because that's not what they're driven by. So I guess I would ask that question to you really, and just say, where can you link that into what's driving you? Because, you know, if does that make sense?
No, it does. Makes very, very clear sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Something I would just jump in with here is that I have a very strong belief that passion, purpose, and profit need to line up very closely, because it's very difficult to make an impact on the problem that you want to solve without being able to keep the lights on in your business. And that looks like a profitable business that works for everybody who is working within it, as well as everybody who it's working for. So I used to get this question all the time with Hopscotch and with Diversely. Oh, is it a charity? That was usually the first question that people would ask me when I was, you know, when I introduced the idea to them. Nothing wrong with running a charity, but is it going to make the impact in a new space that you need it to, both for yourself, for the people who are working for you, and the people that are hopefully benefiting from that as well? So yeah, you know, for me, that kind of tracks back to a couple of my values as well. But it took me quite a while to connect those dots and to put my hand up and admit to that. You know, there were times when I sort of felt like I should be saying that, or I shouldn't be making money from it. And actually I can think completely the opposite now. Anybody else got any questions for Harriet? We've got 4 minutes, strictly speaking. And if not, then we'll share all the details in the platform, a few links for you guys to follow, grab some cards. Harriet is also, obviously, as you mentioned, part of the Founder Sanctuary as well. So feel free to message her there, and she'll get back to you when she can, because she's far too busy going to Ibiza to be messaging people, I am sure, which I'm very jealous of. So thank you so much, Harriet. It's just been amazing to have you here with us. Thank you so much for sharing. I know there is so much other work that goes on behind the scenes that has brought you to this point. So anybody that wants to connect with Harriet, please go ahead and do so. And thank you everyone for being here today. Really appreciate it. And any questions for me, you can always reach out as well. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely remainder of your Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Harriet.
Bye. Thanks, bye.